And now here's your host, Tony Fiorino.
Hey, where did we go?
All right, little Van Morrison this morning. Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I am indeed your host, Tony Fiorino. And as you know, each week on the show, we hit the hottest topics in youth sports. And we always want to know what you guys have to say. So we've already opened up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. This week, we're going to talk about something that has affected most sports parents at one time or another. Let's face it, most, if not all, young athletes, boys and girls alike, they each go through a phase where they want to be a professional athlete. When a kid starts out in sports, they inevitably watch their heroes on TV, and we as parents have to hear things like, I want to play for the Yankees, or I want to be like Jenny Finch, or Mia Hamm, or Jeter, or A-Rod. The list goes on, and it's kind of cute, isn't it? Don't we all remember that conversation? Kind of brings back memories. And when the kids are little, what do we always tell them? We tell them if you work hard, you put your mind to it, you can be anything that you want, right? Well, let's fast forward this one for a second. Let's say your kid's now a sophomore in high school and is glued to the TV like all the other nonsensical morons during, let's say, the NFL draft, let's say. And the next day your kid looks you in the eye and tells you that he or she wants to pursue a professional sports career. Not so cute now anymore, is it? Well, sad to say, but given how seriously we take sports in this country, many of us sports parents, myself included, we're going to be put in this spot if we haven't been already. So what do you do? How do you handle this conversation? You know, do you even know the statistics surrounding, getting to college and playing professionally? Well, we're going to take your calls this morning and discuss this one. The number again is 855-HEY-COACH. It's 855-439-2622. Now, the reason I want to discuss this one this morning is it isn't just because we had a great show last week talking about college recruiting services, but because I came across a very interesting blog post that really hit home with me. The blog is called Just for the Sport of It, and it is moderated and edited by a woman named Meagan Frank. When I first heard of Megan, I thought she was just some mom, and the fact is she's not. She's the author of a book called, it's a series called Choosing to Grow. She is a national speaker, a former athlete, coach, and a mother of three. She was a 4-year starter and captain on the Division I women's soccer team at Colorado. She also coached the University of Wisconsin Stout women's soccer team for 5 seasons. Freelance writer and published author. She is currently working on her second book, which is entitled Choosing to Grow, for the Sport of It. Well, we're very excited to have her on the show, and I understand that Adam has already gotten her on the line. So, without much further ado, we're going to welcome Meagan Frank to the show. Hey, Meagan, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Tony. I'm fine, thanks.
Yeah, we've been trying to get you on the show for a while now. I guess we had to highlight one of your own blog posts before we got you to join us.
No, you just needed hockey season to end. That's all.
Wow, Meagan, you're baiting me. You can see, Meagan is one of the few ladies that I can talk hockey with and not lose my temper and not have her think I'm a total jerk. Everyone thinks I'm a jerk when it comes to hockey. Meagan knows what I'm really all about, but we're not here to talk about hockey this morning. We may talk about it next week with all the playoffs and everything, but before we get into the general questions, and we will take your calls at 855-HEY-COACH, I was going to walk through the blog post and the whole story, but Meagan, since it was you and your kid, do me a favor, and for the purpose of our listeners, walk us through the scenario that you just went through with your husband and your son.
Okay. Well, it wasn't staged. It was something that happened really just kind of impromptu. My son came up into our bedroom and sat down and wanted to ask his dad and I how we thought his hockey tournament was going last weekend. And so we just started chatting, and this is not unusual. We talk a lot about how we think he's doing, and he asks all sorts of questions, and we just answer, and that was kind of how we were talking. And I'm not even really sure what led to it, but I said something like, well, the chances aren't really even very good for you to make it to the pros anyway. And that was really how I said it. And I watched the body posture of my 12-year-old.
You got to repeat that one. Your son basically hinted at, I might want to play pro hockey, and what did you tell him?
Right. And I just said, you do know the percentages are incredibly low, right? The chances are pretty impossible for you to make it into the pros. And
you didn't use the word impossible, did you?
I don't know that I did. It did not. I mean, I might have, because watching his body posture, it's probably what he heard was, there's no way you're ever going to be a professional athlete. I don't think that's what I said, but I think that's what he heard.
Now, how old's your son?
He is almost 12.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I just watched him, completely melt in front of me, and then my husband made this horrific face of, what are you doing? Like, you're a dream crusher. That was everything that happened in less than a millisecond, and I was like, oh, my gosh, no, that is not at all what I meant. Because I just wanted to take the pressure off of him. I hear him. He's a very intense kid. He's a very competitive kid. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure that he knew we are going to support him as parents, but we have no expectation for him to do, the professional sports thing. And I wanted him to be relaxed by that. But instead, it backfired on me. So immediately, that was the initial story. More has happened since then in our conversations with him.
Question for you. Now, and I'm going to ask about your husband because I've never talked with him, and aside from the fact that you're kind of cute and I'm a little jealous, I've never met him, never spoken to him. Does your husband, was his reaction based on he may think your son has an opportunity to go pro, or did he just think you botched the verbiage?
I think he just, I don't know, I think part of him, he saw himself in our son sitting there, and I think he remembers himself as a 12-year-old kid and knew that was everything to him when he was 12, and I think in that split second imagined if someone had said that to him when he was 12, and so he was identifying with our son. And it wasn't even really that, I mean, he knows the percentages just like I do, so his expectations aren't any higher than mine. But at the same token, he's a guy, and he knows what it is to dream about professional sports. I never thought about it at all when I was playing. That was never on my radar. So I still played hard, and I still competed, and worked hard every single practice, every single game. But I didn't have the models, of professional athletes to look up to like the guys do. So we were coming at it from completely different perspectives.
And what's I think interesting that you kind of alluded to there is, I'm sure part of the reason you didn't have, let's say, as strong an aspiration to play professional sports is you're younger than me, I'm assuming from your picture, but I'm assuming there was not a whole lot of professional sports opportunity for a young lady when you were playing in college.
No, not yet. I mean, I know even when my senior year, they were polling all the players on my team about whether we would consider playing professional sports. They were trying to figure out whether there was even a market for it for the players. And, none of us had we hadn't put our energy into that at all during college. We knew we needed to have a degree, so we weren't even thinking that. And that's what I told them. I said, had I known there was a possibility to play, then that might have changed what I did in college. But right now, there's no way I would go play pro. I've got all sorts of things on my plate. Mm-hmm. But you're right. There wasn't anything yet that the best would have been the national team. That was the only thing that we really could have shot for. But even that I never saw on TV. I never saw it in person. I just kind of knew it was there.
Now, level with me. Because again, I don't know your husband, but I'm telling you. And by the way, joining us in studio also this morning is Steve Kolitz, longtime friend of the show. He's a youth sports official extraordinaire in many, many sports. Steve is looking at me and he knows what I'm going to say. There is a part of your husband that, and by the way, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. You know the numbers. You say your husband knows the odds like you do. No, he doesn't. Yep. Because part of him, I'm telling you, still thinks, or probably better word is hopes, that your kid does make it.
Right. Well, and that was, I think, he definitely defends that. He says, there's that chance, even if it's 0.05%,
he wants to be the one. He wants to be the one that when your son gets drafted that says, I'm buying my mom and dad a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Or when his mom told him he would never make it, I was the one who believed in him.
Dad's getting a house.
Well, seriously.
I have backtracked.
But it goes back to, I tell you, as male egos are so much more fragile, it goes back to when, again, it was a scene from, my son loves the movie Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey. We were watching it the other day, and I still love it too. He asked the girl, so what are the odds of a guy like me ending up with a girl like you? And she goes, 1 in a million. And you think, you start laughing, and he goes, so I still got a chance.
That's right. And I think you're right. I think there definitely is a difference in mentality between just men and women, but especially between my husband and I. So you're right. I'll concede to that there probably is that little flicker in my husband's thinking that it's possible.
And,
it is.
And we're going to talk throughout the show about how you keep that flicker going while maintaining a sense of reality. But now, to let you off the hook, since you botched this up so bad, Meagan, you said there's been some developments in this discussion since that horrid, inevitable D-Day in your room with your kid. Tell us what's transpired since then.
Okay, so since then, I definitely, I didn't sleep very well that night, and I started looking at a bunch of things, and I was thinking, all right, I can change this. And I did. The first thing in the morning, I said to my son, I told him my perspective, you got to realize I never had pros to look up to. So this is where I was coming from, and I did not intend to tell you that it's not possible. It is totally possible. Do you have any idea how much work that's going to take? And so we kind of changed the language, and I talked to him about, setting goals. Okay, you're 12. How old do you want to be when you're going to be a professional? And he told me 22. I said, all right, you got 10 years. What's that going to look like? How do we break that down? And so now our language and our conversation has turned to, all right, so what can I do to help you get to where you think you're going to go? And so that's what we're doing. And, I don't know. He's 12, so I'll look back on this in 10 years and say whether it's whatever. And I don't know where he's going to end up, but I think celebrating the effort of the process is how I'm going to, yeah, right, I botched it up, but I am correcting it very slowly. And he's put in even more work and effort, and he worked harder in his next game than I've ever seen him work. So if anything, it may have proved to help him with the whole work ethic thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Does he only play hockey?
No, he plays soccer, too, and he plays, pick up everything. Like, he'll play basketball, and he'll go out and play baseball, but he doesn't play organized. He plays organized soccer and organized hockey. Mm-hmm. And then everything else, he just collects kids from the neighborhood and plays whatever he'll
Which is a lost art.
Yeah, it is. What Steve was saying is it's a lost art. I mean, growing up on Long Island, my whole world was pick up everything. The only thing we had organized really was CYO basketball and Little League baseball. If you wanted to play stuff during the rest of the year, you had to literally knock on doors campaigning to say who wants to go play some touch football.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, and in high school I played water polo. Now, talk about a pro idea there. And going back a lot of years, I mean, it was one of those where I said, I want to play pro water polo. Well, there is no such thing. Well, I still want to do it.
Darn it! Now I got to interrupt you here because now water polo, there's not much of a uniform other than the headgear and a Speedo, right?
Can you picture me in that?
I was going to picture you in a Speedo, but I just threw up in my mouth a little bit, so we're going to move on. Steve's going to be my new sidekick, I think. So Meagan, in general terms, do you really think your son rebounded from that conversation nicely? I mean, is that more of a statement to the resilience of the kid, or do you think maybe there was a little bit of a sobering experience in that, hey, maybe there's no pressure on me to go play professional hockey, and so let's just go have some fun? What do you think?
Well, I think actually he took it to heart as a challenge, kind of like, oh, okay, so you don't think I can? Well, you know what? I'm going to prove to you I can. And there's a really small number. All right, well, I'm going to be one of those small numbers. That's kind of what I've seen in his behavior since then. Now, how that plays out obviously is yet to be seen. But if and I've known this about him, he's got an incredible competitive edge. And I didn't say what I said on purpose to try to light a fire, but I think it kind of has. And, that's partly just him. I think that's just the way that he is wired. I don't know that conversation would have ended the same way for other kids. I just know him.
Well, how many children do you have, Meagan?
I have 3. He's our oldest, and then he's got 2 younger sisters. And we have not had the pro conversation with either of the girls. Well, they probably won't bring it up, to be honest.
Now, you'll find, and by the way, I didn't realize you and I are kind of in the same boat. My oldest is my son, and he's 14. And I have 2 younger girls. And there are, the dynamics of having several children. You say something one way to one of your kids, and it does light that fire. And by the way, I know you didn't mean to because I can tell that's not your personality, but it worked. If you had that same conversation with a different kid, they could have just said, well, I guess might as well just quit hockey. Might as well not play anymore. Mom thinks I stink. And I know you didn't say that. But like you said, what you said was very different than what your kid heard. Meagan, you're going to be able to stick around with us for a couple of minutes because we have to go to a quick break. Adam's going to put you on hold, and we're going to start taking other calls and emails. But before we go to break, we're going to hit our first. We have 2 this week, but we're going to get to our first Hey Coach Tony Athlete of the Week. And this first segment is brought to us by our friends at the Bar and Grill on 7, conveniently located on the Ethan Allen Highway in Ridgefield. And if you talk to folks around Ridgefield, they will tell you the Bar and Grill on 7 is considered to be the best meal in town. Their chef is a CIA graduate, and every meal is just top shelf. And even though this is a sports bar, I got to tell you, they don't go over the top on the sports theme. Don't get me wrong. They got 11 flat screens. Each of them is tuned into some sport. And they'll gladly find you the game you want to watch. But they don't cover the walls with pennants and banners and jerseys. The menu items aren't named after teams and athletic plays. There's no Grand Slam burger or anything like that. It is a legitimate dining experience. So check out Bar and Grill on 7. Now, the athlete of the week is Kafisha Thomas from the girls' track team at Wilton High School. Kafisha is an extremely talented athlete, starting from her first days as a junior athlete in her native Trinidad, running on grass tracks. This culminated in her coming to the U.S. her freshman year at Wilton, an indoor track where she immediately showed her ability and her promise. She did not run outdoor track her freshman year, but as a sophomore, she soon proved to be a force in sprints and relays. And because of that, she was introduced to the hurdles, where because of her strength and flexibility, she progressed very quickly. Now, since then, she's improved her times as well as her distances, because she's also a long jumper, to the extent that she is one of the top intermediate hurdlers in the entire state of Connecticut. She's also one of the faster 200-meter runners and an invaluable member of Wilton's sprint relays. She's clearly one of the most closely watched track athletes in Connecticut, and we're very proud to have her nominated as the Hey Coach Tony Athlete of the Week. I want to remind you that the segment again has been brought to us by our friends at the Bar and Grill on 7, considered by many to be the best meal in town. Bar and Grill on 7 is more than a sports bar because they don't overdo the sports theme. This is a legitimate dining experience, but if you want to watch a game, they're going to have it. Family-friendly atmosphere 7 days a week. After 10 becomes a real hot spot. Very solid open mic night, live music on the weekends, and again, I almost forgot to mention the big Monster Burger Challenge. This is a 6-pound burger with a pound of fries on the side. They've had 41 people try it. Only 4 of them have finished it. You know, I joked last time I did this segment. I said one of the 4 people was my old high school girlfriend because she's a slob. You know how many phone calls and emails I got? All right, so I'm sorry, sweetheart. You're not a slob. It's just a joke. I mean, my God. All right, anyway. Located at 967 Ethan Allen Highway. Call the Bar and Grill on 7 today at 203-438-6033. And if you want to nominate somebody for Athlete of the Week, just go up on the Facebook page at HeyCoachTony.com or email me at HeyCoachTony@gmail.com. Stick around, everybody. We'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Forgot to tell you guys, whether you're listening online or you're in the car, you're at home, however you're listening, I want to say thank you for sharing your time with me every Saturday. We are joined this morning by our good friend Steve Kolitz, who is one of the most respected youth sports officials in the Connecticut area, and also by Meagan Frank, who is the editor-in-chief, chief cook and bottle washer for a blog called Just for the Sport of It. We just heard a story about how Meagan crushed the dreams of her young hockey player by telling him he stinks and is never going pro. And we are actually going to get back to things here. Meagan, I got to tell you, I went up on the blog, and there were a couple of things that jumped off the page at me specific to some feedback, because there was actually quite a bit of feedback. And in particular, there was one person that called him or herself Parenting Aces, who I'm going to read part of the quote. Parenting Aces said, "I struggle with this exact same issue daily with my 15-year-old tennis-playing son. At his present age, the dreams and goals seem to have meshed into one huge ball of plans, hard work, drive, and ambition. But still, the chances of my son reaching his stated goal are slim, very, very slim. Not because he isn't good enough, but rather because he's one of hundreds or thousands of hardworking, talented boys working towards the same exact thing that only has room for a scant few at the top. What to do, what to do." Meagan, what did you think about that particular post and that concept in general?
Well, I think that was definitely where I was coming from as far as the realistic approach to, this whole goal of being a professional athlete. And so, I think if I had a chance to have a conversation with her, we would, commiserate, yes, okay, we're trying to help our kids to reach their goals. But I definitely think that it's important, and I talk to our kids about this all the time, that you have a secondary goal. Okay, so even if you do play professional sports, and when you do play professional sports, I need to change my language, right? That you are going to be done at some point. You will have to retire. You will, be finished. What will you do then? What are you preparing for that second career? What are you going to do? And this came up in our conversation with my son this week. He said, when he wanted to be a pro at 22, he goes, because, I'll have to go through college, and I'll have to get my degree for that job that I'm going to have when I'm done. So something's getting through, but that's what it is. It's okay to have that initial goal and to feed their ambition and to fuel their passion, but at the same time giving them a reason to think about something else, having not all of their eggs in one basket, and providing tools in another area where they can set goals for themselves.
Yeah, we call it Plan B, and it's not a very genius term, but it is Plan B, and everybody has to have one. Multi-million-dollar-a-year athletes have a Plan B. Now, their Plan B tends to be, I'm going to go do movies or something. But by the way, Megan, I don't know if you know the person Parenting Aces, but let's see how good you are. Is Parenting Aces a man or a woman?
It's a woman.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, my God, I would have been wrong, because when I heard what...
I would have said woman.
Really? Because here's why I was going to say man. My son's chances are very, very slim. And the statement was, not because he isn't good enough. And that is such a dad thing to say. And by the way, I think Parenting Aces should know, it's not hundreds or thousands. It's probably hundreds of thousands of other kids that have that same dream.
There's a little bit of luck that comes into these things.
A lot of luck.
Yeah, I mean, sarcastically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, between injury, between burnout, between multiple sports, between being seen, I mean, it's just so much that has to happen.
Fitting the mold.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about fitting the mold because I'm still in therapy over this. A lot of you know that I was a pretty accomplished baseball player in college. I was actually a nationally ranked player at 5'9" as a shortstop, even though I was a power hitter. The odds were so stacked. And there are other things that come into it.
One of our umpires went for an evaluation to do high-level college softball, and he was told he was too heavy. He was told he wouldn't look good on TV.
Wow.
Oh, no.
If being too heavy doesn't make you look good on TV, then I tell you what, CPTV Sports is going to call and rescind their offer to me in about 2 minutes. But anyway, my approach on this one is pretty simple, and I want to get your thoughts on this, both of you guys. I think this comes down to, in large part, differentiate. And by the way, before I do this, Megan, one thing I think is important for you as a mom to know, especially since it's your oldest kid, at 12 years old, or going on 12, there is still a tremendous amount of innocence. And I got to tell you, I don't know if there's necessarily anything wrong with, oh, shucks, I'm going to go be a pro athlete. At 12, and I won't say I disagree with you because I like you, but, maybe at 11, maybe it wasn't even the time, and maybe your kid's very mature, and it sounds like he is, but it might not have even been the time to do that. But what I'm getting to is a lot of this comes down to differentiating between goals and dreams, and there is a real difference. Bottom line is this. Either way, regardless of age, regardless of goals versus dreams, you as a parent, you can and should be realistic about your kid's goals without crushing, to use your husband's terms, without crushing his or her dreams. If a kid's goal or dream is to play shortstop for the Yankees, nothing wrong with making sure that kid knows a few things. Like you said before, Megan, what does it take to achieve that goal? How many other kids want that same exact goal that you do? And you can deliver that message without coming across as negative. If you're pragmatic, the kid's eventually going to figure out the odds on their own without having you tell them it's a negative thing. I mean, think about it. Don't we all set a lot of goals in our lives that we sometimes fall short of? Doesn't make us bad people. Doesn't make us failures. It's just part of life. Now, having said that, any kid that sets their sights on professional sports career without having that plan B, whenever I do a workshop or a seminar, I liken this to, and if anybody listening happens to be a skydiver, they're going to get this analogy right away. Matter of fact, unless you're an idiot, you're going to get this analogy right away. If you go skydiving, you're relying on not one parachute, but two. You jump out of a plane, you have a chute. If that chute screws up or malfunctions, your plan B is called a reserve chute. And going through life thinking I'm going to be a professional athlete and that's all I'm going to do, that's jumping out of an airplane without a reserve chute. And if that chute doesn't open up, you're dead. Nothing wrong with telling your kid, hey, listen, I think that's a pretty serious goal. And you know what? I really hope you get there. What do you think it's going to take? Sounds like a lot of hard work and dedication. Do you think you have that in you? Well, you know what? I hope so too, kid. And you know what? I hope you get there. And just know that along the way, you're going to have my support whenever you need it. And always remember that you have to keep all your options open. That's a nice way of saying, boy, you better go to school because the odds are against you.
I think the show's over.
Yeah, wow, that was the quickest show ever. Actually, believe it or not, I can't believe we're spinning right through here. Megan, can you stick around a little longer?
Sure. Yep. Kids are still sleeping, so I'm good right now.
Oh, that's right. You're in Minnesota? Where are you?
I'm in Minnesota, yeah.
All right, Minnesota.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. All right, well, listen, we got to go to our second athlete of the week here. All right, enough with the bad Midwestern accent. All right, second athlete of the week. is brought to us by our friends at 189 Sports Cafe, located at 189 Federal Road in Brookfield. It is the family sports bar serving all your favorite American classics. 189 Sports Cafe is the perfect place to watch all your favorite teams while enjoying great specials in a welcoming environment. 189 now has not one but 2 outdoor patios open, so you can enjoy the weather while enjoying your favorite meal. Now, our athlete of the week this week is Brittany Fusek, who is a softball pitcher from Brookfield High School. Now, so far this season, when I say so far, up until Monday, she has been perfect with a 6-0 record. She has recorded victories over Terryville, Newtown, and beat Laurelton Hall twice in the same week. And Laurelton Hall is actually a pretty good program.
I did one of those.
You did one of those games?
I did.
All right. So Brittany's actually she's a pretty serious pitcher, isn't she?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the team is, again, as of Monday, the team is sporting a perfect 7-0 record so far this season. And that is due in large part to the outstanding pitching performances of Brittany Fusek of Brookfield High School, our Hey Coach Tony Athlete of the Week. And we want to congratulate you for being nominated. Remind you again, Hey Coach Tony Athlete of the Week, brought to you by our friends at 189 Sports Cafe, located at 189 Federal Road in Brookfield. 189 is the family sports bar serving all your favorite American classics. It's the perfect place to watch all your favorite teams while enjoying great specials in a welcoming environment. As I mentioned earlier, with the weather, I was going to say warming up. This morning was no inclination of that. But theory has it May is coming up, and with the warm weather, you're going to want to enjoy their 2 outdoor patios so you can enjoy the weather while you're enjoying your favorite meal. So head on down to 189 Sports Cafe, and you tell them, hey, Coach Tony sent you. Stick around, everybody. We'll be back after this.
Coach Tony.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to Hey, Coach Tony every Saturday morning, 9 a.m., soon to be coming to CPTV Sports for those of you in Connecticut. For those of you not in Connecticut, you can still catch me on YouTube whenever you miss a show. All right, listen, we are joined in studio today by Steve Kolitz, who is, as I mentioned, one of the most respected youth and college officials in the area, and Meagan Frank, who hosts a blog called Just for the Sport of It. And Meagan, really just she reached out and grabbed me this week with her little typewriter with this story, which we're all faced with it. Her son came to her and said, basically I want to go pro, and I won't keep picking on her, but she went through a learning experience of, walking the line between giving your kids some pragmatism and shattering their dreams. Now, the good news is Megan's a smart lady, and she didn't shatter any dreams. In fact, her son seems to have a whole new found spark in his step as it pertains to hockey. We got a couple of emails in, and Megan, I want to get your thoughts on this one because I got one from Rob in New Fairfield. And he simply said, hey, Coach Tony, what's wrong with kids having dreams? Didn't we all dream of being Reggie Jackson when we were kids? We all seem to turn out okay. Megan, while you're thinking about that, I'm gonna ask Steve. Steve, what is your thought on that one?
Well, obviously, when I say obviously, it's not that obvious. They should have dreams. We all have our dreams, whether it's sports or not, and we shouldn't dash them. But as parents, we should maintain being a parent at a game. Of course, I look at it from a different side from the days now as an official, but as a coach as well. Let the kids be kids, support them. Don't ridicule the officials, don't yell at the coaches, don't yell at the other teams. You're a parent at the games. Even as a coach, you're a parent after the game.
Sure.
And there's a time and place for everything, especially at the younger ages. Mm-hmm. As they get older and that dream gets to be possibly more vivid, there's a college looking at a kid, then the dreams become more of a reality, and you should react accordingly. But like I said before, the burnout factor, the multi-sport factor, the injury factor, it also comes into play. And we as parents sometimes burn a kid out because baseball, or whatever it might be.
Or succeed.
Well, yeah, and year-round they got their individual coach, they got all, the kid may end up wanting to be a basketball player,
Exactly.
And be a great basketball player and never find out.
Well, and that's a big part of it. Megan, like I said, Robin New Fairfield wants to know what's wrong with having dreams. Apparently Robin New Fairfield wanted to be Reggie Jackson when he was a kid, and he said he turned out okay. What do you think of that?
Well, obviously you want kids to have dreams. Everyone should have dreams, really. I think through your whole life you should be dreaming about something. It's part of being human. I think the difference between when I was growing up and boys that were my age dreaming about being a professional athlete, the entire youth sports culture was very different than it is now. And it feels like kids are in this community of pressure cooking, build the best athlete, so many resources for what you need to do to get that college scholarship or that professional contract. And so whether that's happening in our house, the kids that are playing from our house are still in that community. So they hear the things that other parents say at those games, like he was saying. If they're not parents at a game, they're screaming at kids. And my kids are exposed to that. So battling this idea of dreams that so many people are kind of hanging their hats on, that they think this is actually possible, and they're doing everything they can to make it happen. Those are the people that my kids are surrounded with if we choose to put them in organized sports now. And that's different than it was when we were growing up. So my approach to this with our kids is that, yeah, absolutely, dream as big as you can about whatever it is that you want to do. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a professional athlete, that's great, and I'm going to help you. Just know that the investment of our time and our money and the things that is in you as a person, and not because we think you're going to be a professional athlete someday. So that's the way that I would talk about this dream idea. Support it completely, but just know that it is not the only reason we do what we do.
Excellent idea.
That money thing is something we haven't really touched on. It's amazing the amount of money it takes to bring a youth sport, an athlete, to a position where they can even think about going to college or, making it as a college, a scholarship, and so on. The amount of money that it takes, and that's a commitment on the family as well.
No question about it. Especially now, you talk about, I used to think that you get to have your breather when you hand your kids off to high school. Well, a lot of schools, pay per play is becoming widespread because of the problems with school budgets. And one of the other things, Megan kind of alluded to this. I think and Rob in New Fairfield, I want to thank you for that email. But there's another big difference, Rob. When we were kids, and Steve just said this, we didn't have 24/7 trainers. We didn't have so much mass media exposure of young amateur athletes. We all wanted to be Reggie Jackson, but most of us, want to talk about ignorance being bliss, most of us had no idea what it would take. We didn't know we could get our parents to spend thousands of dollars with private instructors. We didn't know about the allure of the scholarships and the scandals of athletes skating by, not going to classes, and nor what would have happened if we didn't take over right field for Reggie when he was done. I mean, ignorance truly was bliss. Now, I think now it's absolutely incumbent upon us as parents to protect our kids. And normally you won't hear me say things like, parents, let's protect our kids because we coddle too much. But I think we do have to protect our kids from what I'll call life-altering mistakes. And putting all your eggs in the pro sports basket, or even the majority of your eggs in a pro sports basket, is a life-altering mistake. We were very fortunate to grow up in what I still would refer to as an age of innocence. And let me tell you, brother, that age is long gone. 855, hey, coach, is the studio line if you want to chime in here. But I was talking to one of my buddies during the week when I first started planning the show. And his take, and this is kind of interesting, he said he would only drop a bomb on his kid if he knew the kid had a serious lack of ability, or if the kid was, let's say, 18 and got cut from his college team. His point was, and I'm not going to say his name for obvious reasons, I'll tell you later. His point is that the kid in this article is only 12, and he should be left to figure that out for himself in the short term. He tried telling me that once a kid is 15, 16, 17 years old, it's different because then you can see the talent evolving. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not using my friend's name, it's because, well, he's probably not going to be my friend after this segment of the show because I think it's a pretty weak argument. As a matter of fact, it's a very weak argument, and I almost said his name. If you're listening, I'll buy you a beer, but it's pretty stupid. Let me explain. Do you have any idea how many kids don't really hit their stride physically and mentally until they get to that 15, 16, 17-year-old age? For a lot of athletes, you're talking about the golden years of prosperity and growth. This is the height of their college careers. And again, I will tell you, personally, my stride was sophomore to junior year. I had one little spurt of obviously doing something right because I played in college when I was 16. But when between my sophomore and junior year of college is when I really, really hit my stride and my maturity as a ball player. If my dad looked at me at 15 and said, well, he's obviously not going to go anywhere, you know what? I would have lost a college scholarship.
And you're talking your high school years.
No. I said I hit my first one when I was 15 or 16. My real stride to maturity as a ball player was between sophomore and junior year in college.
Okay.
In college. And now that may not be the norm, but you're going to tell me you're going to look at any kid between 15 and 17 and decide their future? My son's going to be 15 in June. I still tie his shoes. He's not ready. I mean, that's just the reality of it. If you cut a kid's dream off simply because of how old they are, boy, you're making talk about a life-altering mistake. No question about it.
And that's shattering dreams.
Yeah, I really think
flat out shattering dreams. I mean, let a kid have a dream, through high school. Certainly support. Make sure he's going to school. Make sure he's getting grades. He or she getting the grades, going to school, doing their homework, doing the right things, doing some things civically, doing some things in the community. Those are important. Those are facts for them to see and know how to get through life.
Hey, Megan, now you're a hockey lady. Do you know Larry? You know who Larry Walker is?
I should probably.
No, you wouldn't know him from hockey. Larry Walker was one of the most prominent outfielders, I would say, from mid '80s to mid '90s, maybe even that late. An amazing outfielder, incredible hitter.
Backwards.
Yeah, he wore the helmet backwards when he had to face Randy Johnson in the All-Star game. What most people don't know, Larry Walker didn't take baseball seriously until around the age of 17, and you want to know why? He realized he was not going to be a professional hockey player. Sammy Sosa, I don't think, picked up a baseball until he was 15 years old. Now, granted, the guy took steroids and for some reason bleached his skin white, but that's besides the point. We're going back to the point of, don't shatter your kids' dreams until they reach 15 or so. Don't be stupid. I mean, again, Megan, you said it earlier. Foster your kids' dreams. My kid thinks his biggest challenge is going to be figuring out whether he's going to play professional football or baseball. And he's in high school. Now, yeah, after watching, now I will tell you, the only good news about him watching the draft, he said, Dad, these guys are big. I don't think I can play in the NFL.
Right.
So he's going to settle on taking over shortstop when Jeter's done with it for the Yankees. But the point is, you never know what your kid's going to be. And the only long-term planning you should be doing for your kid is how you're going to pay for college. The rest of it, just make sure you're managing that path. We always talk about a journey, not a destination. Well, that's truly what success is. Help your kid on his or her journey.
Let me look at another path. I mean, one of the ones, and I lived this one, for a family of parents that didn't support my athletics. Going through high school, I was 6 o'clock in the morning is in high school, the workouts, swimming, so on and so forth. And I'd get home every night.
With your Speedo.
Yeah. Thank God. Get you drinking coffee on that one. But my parents were like, why are you getting us up in the morning? Can you be more careful? Getting up or drive, I was leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning to be in the pool. Thank God it was Southern California, not here. But,
well, exactly.
And it was tough. It was tough to do that. And so that was another fight in trying to, talk about shattered dreams,
Yeah, shattering someone's dreams. Well, you know what? And I pick on my wife. She was not the most astute or accomplished athlete, but, she had, just like I did, immigrant off the boat parents from Italy. Or in her case, off the plane. My wife was actually born in Italy, but she played high school basketball, and 5 o'clock every night was dinner. Her parents would pick her up from her game, in the middle of the game, time to go home for dinner. It breaks my Megan, you're laughing. It breaks my heart. I talk about my wife, and I get teary-eyed with the childhood that was robbed of that poor little girl. But anyway, you know what? We're gonna have to go to another break, man. This is flying right by. Before we do, though, I just have to give props. If you are anywhere in the local listening area and you are driving on Federal Road, do me a favor. There is the cutest little kid in the world standing outside of Dunkin' Donuts with a little bucket in his hands, and he's trying his best to explain how he and a group of his kids were doing Odyssey of the Mind, and somehow they came up with a method to time travel chickens. I don't get it. I'm not going to get it. But, boy, the kid is passionate about what he's doing, and he's got a bucket in his hands.
He should be at KFC.
Well, I was going to say a bucket of chicken. That's how you do it. I guess put them in a microwave. Anyway, throw a couple of the Dunkin' Donuts. Just off of 7 on Federal Road. Stop off and give that kid a buck or two, will you? I mean, I was so impassioned by what this kid is doing. What does that have to do with sports? Absolutely nothing. But you're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Hey Coach Tony. This and every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Joined in studio by Steve Kolitz and via phone to Meagan Frank out of Minnesota. Meagan, there was another post that came up on this blog. We're talking this morning, by the way, about keeping some reality in check with your kids as it pertains to their sports dreams without sending them packing and quitting their sports. There was a guy on your blog named Dave Benzel, and I'm going to paraphrase. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to get to that one. I want to go to John from Ridgefield. This wasn't on the blog. I'm sorry. John said, one thing I'm getting tired of is the argument of mere probability as a rationale to disappoint a kid who wants to go pro. Couldn't you also point out to a kid that he probably isn't going to become a doctor or an actor or a CEO or president of the United States for that matter? What makes this country great is that the dreams of children are supported and fostered. That one really, really stuck out for me because let me ask you this, Meagan. If your kid came to you that same night and said, Mom, Dad, I think I want to become president of the United States, what would you have said?
Of course, I would have said, well, of course, you can do anything you want to do. I would say that we have probably done very little in preparing you. Where are we going to go from here? I think the thing about the sports thing is that he's been doing it since he was 2. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't been preparing to be president since he was 2. So there's a difference in not just his opinion, but in our experience as a family. And so that's why the sports question is so much different than, wanting to be a doctor, because you're doing the school stuff anyway. You're planning, and so those dreams feel very different because they do emulate those pro athletes. They do the things out there that they see on TV all the time. And so it's a different question in my mind when you talk about pro sports versus any other profession later on in life.
You're getting good at this, Meagan, because I got to tell you, my first reaction was, and I think you did a really good job of explaining it, I think almost every one of us as parents would have said the same thing.
I would have said you had a better chance of being an athlete.
And that may be true. I don't know what the general odds are, but you're probably right. You probably do have a better chance of being a professional athlete than being president of the U.S., which is still shocking how Obama's in office. Anyway.
Yeah, there's only one president every 4 years, and how many athletes every year get drafted?
And how many senators and congressmen? Would you look at that as the minor leagues? But you know what? I guess the point is, let's use doctor or actor or whatever. I think outside of sports, we tend to be so much more supportive of our kids' dreams, and I really don't know why, but I think you gave a really interesting perspective. My daughters come to me and say, I want to be an actor. I'm going to say, great, let's figure out how we do it. But for some reason, there's this sheltering, sobering reality to sports, and I think you got probably 90% of the way there, Meagan, and I don't know what the other 10% is, but that was a really great answer. Steve, what is your thought? I mean, like I said, kid says, I want to be something. We always tell them, you can be anything you want. You can be anything you want. Oh, except the left wing. I mean, that's not fair.
Now, we as parents, I mean, there are some parents that say, I'm sorry, we can't afford that. There are some parents that say, that dash that dream. There are some that, say, let's get together and look into it. Mm-hmm. And I've had family or friends that have done some acting. Done the commercials, and gone into that and tried it, and gotten out of it. Mm-hmm. It's a rat race. Like everything's a rat race. It depends which rat race you want to run.
Anything that looks glamorous, it has herds of cattle just dying to do the same job that they want to do. And I always knock because I have a garbage man in my family, so nobody get upset. You're not going to see millions of people lining up dying to go become a garbage man.
Or umpire.
Or umpire, for that matter of fact. Most umpires are the ones lined up to become garbage men.
Hey, look, there was an email just the other day about here in the Brookfield League. Mm-hmm. There was one back and forth. The managers sent out some emails about, putting in work and effort to, as the teams, and the umpire, because the director sent out an email saying, guys, don't harass the umpires, blah, 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 blah. Well, they need to do their job. Yeah, we need to do our job.
Yep.
I promote to our guys. They got to do their job. It's a one umpire game. You got to do what you got to do. You got to accept the calls the way you have them and act like responsible people. Same type of thing with the parents. When you have your athletes on the field, your children, be a parent, be respectful, teach them sportsmanship as well as that growth factor.
Yeah, absolutely, Meagan. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
About being a parent on the sideline.
Well, that's a whole separate show. But but like I said, I really liked your answer, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. And I think, by the way, Meagan, I think that's your next blog post. I think I think that's a good follow-up point to what we're talking about here. I mean, there's really no question about it. Let me get to. Okay, there was this guy David Benzel from your blog. He brought up a good point. He said, in our school, we've taken a slightly structured approach with an entire team of athletes regarding this particular issue. each kid is asked to write a personal vision statement that basically states what I want to do with my life other than play professional sports. We feel it's important for kids to spend time imagining and dreaming of the many things they could do, and some kids need a nudge to think beyond the current passion of their sport. As we all know, passions, motivation levels, and even talent can burst forth at unexpected times and become surprise chapters in our lives. All right, here's where it gets kind of hokey. All right, the point of this is, and I'm sorry, David, for slamming the door on your Hallmark, your career at writing for Hallmark cards, but wow, what an interesting concept. Forcing the athletes to basically pen a mini thesis about what you're going to do in the slight chance you don't get a multi-million-dollar contract after senior year of high school. What do you think of that, Meagan?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the whole point of that second shoot, that plan B, that you can be doing everything you're doing for sport and experiencing it every day that you come to practice and every day that you play your games. But what's your vision bigger than that? Because we are bigger than that. We're not just one-dimensional people. We are athletes, every single one of us, and we also should be aspiring to do all sorts of other things with our life, too. I mean, I think you protect your kids' dreams. You want to protect them, but you need to provide them tools to achieve goals. And goals outside of athletics, I think it's a brilliant idea and something that you can start at a pretty young age when you're coaching kids.
I don't know that we're saying this right. I think Plan B is an important step. Don't take me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have multiple Plan A's. I don't think that just one Plan A is the right way to go either.
Well, you know what? Let me explain to you why I think that is right. Let me see if I have. Where is the story? What the other? Oh, here we go. Tim Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the story of Tim Brady?
Tim Brady,
the guy on your blog?
On the blog, yeah.
Why don't you tell the story?
I said, well, I've got to remember, because there were like 20 not in front of my computer.
All right, well, basically his son came to him and said he wanted to go. Yeah, he was dead set on playing basketball for Gonzaga. So I guess he was watching the Final Four one year. The dad said he recalls saying very little and something really intelligent like, cool. That was Dad's response. Okay. This guy, Tim Brady, said, I knew it was a long shot, but figured the best way is to let it play out. Well, guess what? He didn't play at Gonzaga. You know what the kid wound up doing? He played linebacker at nationally ranked Boise State. Going back to what you said earlier. Who would have guessed it? So this guy says whether it's hockey, football, playing the violin, there are life lessons involved in this journey. And he used that word again, journey. And I think that's really what it is. Steve said before, don't dash a kid's dreams, because you never know what staying in basketball could lead to the skills that made him a really good linebacker.
Well, he might have got into high school at 6'4", and the high school coach says, "Oh, this kid's going to be huge." And, in his senior year, I'm going to draft, have him play, and he stopped growing.
It happens all the time.
I got into high school. I was 6 foot. I graduated 6'2".
I think I got into high school 5'4" and left 5'5". Anyway. And Meagan, by the way, I really want to thank you for joining. I planned on having you on for only about 10 minutes or so, and I hogged it. And I'm sorry I didn't get to some of the calls here today. But, Meagan, you were terrific, and I'd love to have you back on again soon. So thank you for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right. Well, did anybody watch the Yankees-Texas Rangers game the other night? If you didn't, go look it up online, because what happened was there was a foul ball down the right field line. And the right fielder for the Texas Rangers made a gallant attempt to do the right thing. He saw a dad holding a little kid, and he went to toss him the foul ball. If you don't know what happened, the guy next to the kid who was being held by his dad reached out and grabbed the foul ball. The kid was in tears. He was distraught. This kid wanted the foul ball worse than anything in his life, and he was just inconsolable. Michael Kay pointed it out, and the guys happened to roll back the tape. Michael Kay hadn't seen what happened. And what was really funny, the guy basically, for the rest of the game, turned his back to that little kid, and he gave the ball to his girlfriend or wife or whatever it was, and these people were either oblivious or truly ignorant, and I mean in the truest sense of the word, to what was going on right next to them. This guy was taking pictures of his wife with the ball, rubbing it into this kid.
They were getting married. I saw it.
They were getting married?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, sweetheart, if that's the kind of guy you want to marry, tell you what, invite your divorce lawyer to your wedding. That guy, like, what a loser.
Yeah, I saw something. They were oblivious to it, and I guess the Yankees did see that and then gave the kid a ball.
Well, you know why? And that's why the Yankees are the classiest organization in professional sports. I could not believe that. This guy literally, and by the way, he wasn't oblivious. He was turning his shoulder. He was dreading eye contact with that dad. I was absolutely disgusted with what I saw. And by the way, even if you didn't see it, hey, you have children, I have children. When they're that age and they're crying for 5 minutes straight, there is no ignoring a kid who's screaming his head off at that age.
Not enough popcorn.
Not exactly. Not enough peanuts and Cracker Jack. Because guess what? That kid never going back. And that was a bad pun on the show, on the song rather. All right, listen. I really was hoping to get to the Hey Coach Tony $99,000 answer. I promise we'll start the show off next week. I'm actually going to post I'll post the questions online at heycoachtony.com. The bottom line to all this is this whole survey was it's new information. It's about the amount of high school athletes that go on to play in college. And I don't mean in general. This is broken down by individual sport and by the sports that have the potential to go on and play professionally. That's why I wanted to do this particular segment this week. But we'll start it next week. We're going to talk basketball, how many high school seniors end up playing on a college team, and how many of them go on to the NBA. So if you want to win your share of Hey Coach Tony mugs and T-shirts, you make sure to tune in next week. Like I said, folks, every Saturday, 9 a.m. Appreciate the emails, the phone calls. Want to thank Megan one more time. Especially want to thank our buddy Steve Kolitz for another great show. Check us out on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter at Hey Coach Tony. Go to heycoachtony.com for the Facebook page and keep sending in those nominations for Athlete of the Week. Hope you guys enjoyed the rest of the weekend. We'll see you next week.